guys? Well, we are, if you can kind of see in the background, termites flipped around. We've got the front axle done. We're starting on the back now. So hopefully by next video, we'll be done with gears and have some test drives in and all that kind of stuff. But while we're in between, we wanted to kind of explain what gears we went with and why we went with them. If you're new to overlanding or just off-roading in general, which a lot of people are, it's a growing thing. A lot of more people are getting into it. I've been into cars just about my whole life. And so gears are one of those things that's just, I understand the concept and why they're important. And we just wanted to explain why, because we have a lot of people, friends of ours, people that we meet and stuff and things that get a Jeep or a Toyota or something like that, and they immediately throw bigger tires on it, lift kits on it, and then wonder why they have no power, wonder why their fuel mileage is suffering. And so gears are the difference in that. Gears are incredibly important. A lot of people think, well, we'll just throw some horsepower at it, engine swap or performance upgrades, and those are nice. And yeah, they are going to help take some of the slack out. But gears are necessary for not just getting down the road. I mean, we're talking shift points on your transmission will be more factory setting and better. Even things like temperature, our temps, since we've put the tent on top of termite, our engine temps on the highway have run a little bit warmer than they were before. Just solely due to the fact that we were at such a low RPM with the high gear set that we have, and it's causing our converter to not be able to fully get up into a lockup area on the RPMs. Therefore, it's building heat up because it's slipping, and that heat is just transferring into the engine. So around town, you're not going to notice anything, but every time we get on the highway and we're trying to keep up with traffic, our engine temps start to kind of creep up a little bit. So that's one thing we're hoping will be fixed with this. So before you start considering engine swaps and all that kind of stuff, really, really look into gears. You'll see guys doing rock crawling with 4 cylinders, and they are smoking 40-inch tires going up rocks. It's because their gear setup. It's nothing really to do with the power of the engine. It's solely the gear setup. This is a quote by, how do you say his name? Archimedes? Said it right? It says, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." So basically, that is so gear related because it's talking about leverage. I could get one of my kids out here. They don't have a lot of strength, but I could give them a long cheater bar on a wrench, and they could break a lot of nuts that are really, really tight. So gears are your leverage. That's what's going to help you get down the road better. Now, we got a couple of formulas here to show you how you can get into that ballpark, but you can always call a shop that does gears and things like that and tell them what you got. More than likely, they'll be able to steer you in the right direction. You can get on forums. What I did was a little bit of all of it. I talked to shops. I talked to people, what gears they're running in comparison to what we have on our Jeep. I run these formulas, and that's how we got to where we are. So our gear is factory 272 gears. Wagoneers came in those years with either 272s or 331s. If you had a towing package, you got 331s. I know a lot of people that run the 331s and they're running 33-inch tires, lift kits, and say, man, they're beautiful. Run fantastic down the highway. Everything's fine. That was my major reason why we went with 354s, which is what we've put in, is because of how well people say the 331s do. So when we look at this, here's kind of a couple of formulas to let you see. First of all, let's talk about getting back to your stock ratio, getting your gear set up to where your transmission and all that stuff is moved back to the stock thing. So you can go on a load of websites out there, just type in like gear ratio calculator and they'll put it in. But if you want to just do the formula yourself for fun, this is what it is. You take your new tire size, which is for us a 32, your old tire size, which for the Grand Wagoneers I want to say was right around a 29-inch tall tire. You're going to divide the new tire size by the old tire size. Take that number, multiply it by your gear ratio, and that's going to give you what would be recommended to get it back to stock. So for us, it was a 299 gear set would give us back to stock. Now, if we had 331 gears, that same setup, we would need to go to 393 gears to have a factory setup, which I think would be really high RPM because they were set up for towing. Now, the thing with this is, for us, it's not just tire size that we increased in. These things are bricks going down the highway, so we've got a lift kit, which is increasing the wind drag. We've got the larger tires. We've got the 10 on top. So it's not just about larger tires rotating. It's also the wind drag and wind resistance going down the road. So for that, we realized we obviously want to get our RPMs up on the highway, because here's what amazed me when I did this formula. It shows where your RPM is at if you don't have a tach on, or like we don't have a tach. So where our RPMs were going down the highway. So to find that out, you're going to take your speed, and you can take any speed you want, and it will tell you kind of where you are ballpark in that area. So let's say 65. That's a pretty common number for going down the highway. 65 times whatever gear set you have. So for us, 272. We're going to take that number and multiply it by 336. Take that number and divide it by your new tire size. So for us, it's 32. And that tells us that we were setting right at 1,800 RPM at 65 miles an hour. Like, termite idles right around 800 RPM setting at a red light. So 1,800 RPM in a 3-speed transmission with the wind resistance and all the stuff that we have, it's no wonder it's such a dog on the highway and we almost get run over all the time, because that's about all it can do. Not to mention, again, our torque converter in our transmission is nowhere near lockup RPM, so it's slipping and building heat. So that's just too low RPM for what we have. Now, modern day stuff have like 8-speed transmissions. You can turn the overdrive off, or if you have a standard, those are going to give you a little bit of variables. But for us, we're kind of limited. 3-speed transmission, that's about all we got. So what we do now is we want to see, I had to find a gear set that would get me right where I wanted us to be, which is somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 RPM, preferably closer to 3,000 if I had to. So we did the same thing, 65 times 354, took that number, multiplied it by 336, divided that number by 32, and we got just over 2,400 RPM. So I think it's going to be closer to 2,500 RPM, but I think that right there is going to get us right into that torque curve sweet spot, and it's going to kind of give us the best of both worlds. We're going to be able to cruise comfortably down the highway, but still have enough off-road grunt when we get off-road. Now, this is for us. You really need to consider what your future plans are for your rig. We may, when it comes time for tires, move up to 33s. That's a real possibility, but we're never going to raise termite up any more than it is. We know that the 4-inch lift that's on it is where we want to be, and we know because of just limited fender well size that 33s are really going to be our max. So I feel even with 33s, we're still going to be okay. So if you're planning on in the future going higher with the lift, bigger with the tires, you obviously need to keep that into consideration. So for us, we ran these, but mostly for me, it was just talking to other people that have Grand Wagoneers running 331s with 33s, and they say they'll run 80, 85 like it's nothing. So I think with 354s, it's going to get us right into that spot where we'll be able to cruise comfortably down the highway, keep up with traffic, see some lower temps, probably even a little bit better fuel mileage, because even though a low RPM sounds ideal, it's really lugging the engine and stuff. So anyway, guys, that's where we are. We're going to dive back in here, get the rear axle knocked out, and hopefully next week we'll be driving this thing and letting you know how these gears do. So thank y'all for watching. Remember, give us a like and subscribe, comment, thumbs up, all that kind of stuff is great. We surely do appreciate it, man. See you guys next week.